What's a creepy fact you wish you never learned? First fact. Chainsaw was invented by two doctors to assist in childbirth. Sawing through pelvic bone gives a mother and the baby some chance of survival if the baby is too big. Yay. Second fact. Loa loa, the African eyeworm, can invade the human eye. Adults are between 1 and 2.5 inches long. Third fact. Nurse here. I learned that some people will use any hole in a sexual way, including a surgical hole in the stomach to collect feces into a bag, a colostomy. Additionally, some individuals with these kinds of holes will engage in prostitution for the use of that hole. How do we know? They come in with infections in these holes and admit to the behavior. I also learned this sexual act is called a Philadelphia sidecar. Fourth fact. Ascaris worms are a type of large, parasitic roundworm that make their home in the human digestive tract. They are endemic in many parts of the world. I used to work at a hospital where we took a lot of patients from very poor and remote places, especially Central America, where roundworm infection is very common. When you put those patients under for surgery, the anesthesia causes their blood to become slightly alkaline, which the worms hate. So after a few minutes they will start coming out of every orifice in the body. Nose, mouth, rectum. And I am talking full-sized worms that look just like earthworms. It is no exaggeration one of the grossest things you can imagine. You give those patients a drug called bendazole. They defecate dead worms for 3 days, and then they are fine. Fifth fact. The cardiopulmonary resuscitation dummy face is based on the face of a teenage girl found dead in the Seine River in Paris in the 19th century. Her cause of death and identity is still unknown. Sixth fact. In the meteor apocalypse movies, it usually starts with some random research team discovering the meteor by accident, then figuring out it is headed for Earth. That is pretty much what we have to hope for. Those sons of bitches are fast. Like faster than you can imagine. In movies, it is this huge ball of fire that tears through the atmosphere in some cinematic masterpiece that allows the people below to see how fucked they are. That is not true in real life. In real life, it goes from the edge of our atmosphere to the Earth in less than a second. It hits the Earth, hitting with such force that the ground moves like you threw a boulder into a lake. Waves of Earth become fluid and destroy everything in a massive flux of destruction. But what is really scary is that it is cold. It is cold until it hits some type of atmosphere from a planet or space body. Because it is cold, it is hard to detect with just pointing instruments into space. Unless we are specifically looking for it, we will not see it. We will not know that we are about to all die. We will not know that a meteor is about to hit us until we see a literal tsunami of Earth outside our window about to kill us. That is why movies have people discovering it by accident. Because the chances of us finding it on purpose are not good. Add-on. This has gotten a bunch of attention and I do see some people freaking out. There is some good news in regards to this. Thanks to the sheer age of the solar system and the universe, a lot of the stuff that could have hit us has already hit us or hit something before us. Moon craters, not just for our moon, show the impact of previous asteroids. Planets have already been bombarded by the stuff floating about. So while the chances are not zero, they are fairly low. Also, we are a really small planet. Literally a pale blue dot even before you leave the solar system. And damn near invisible once you leave the solar system. Seventh fact. When a bug gets stuck in your eye that you cannot get out, our eyes break down and eat them, and we actually absorb the nutrients. Eighth fact. That people who are allergic to cockroaches cannot drink ground coffee because there is ground cockroaches in it. Ninth fact. There is this that I heard one time: if you feel like you are being watched by someone, you probably are. Now I cannot help but think about how that feeling occurs, similarly to observing a quantum particle. The particle reacts to being watched or touched, and since we have a bunch of those particles in our atoms, in our cells, in our organs, in our bodies, we can literally feel like we are being watched with every fiber of our being. 10th fact. Pitesti experiment in Romania overseen by the Soviet Union. Probably the worst thing that humans have ever done to other humans. Makes Unit 731 look like daycare. Communist Russia was probably the most evil human organization to ever exist. It was basically an experiment to prove that souls do not exist. that any human, no matter how resilient, can be broken or demasked into an animal-like slave. They prove this by killing the human spirit with 24 hours a day, 7 days a week torture, degradation, brainwashing, and humiliation. Besides the obvious brutal violence, there were actions like eating one's own excrement, vomit, and being forced to desecrate every sacred belief one ever held until completely broke. They did this to the most resilient anti-communist student activists. They all broke. Then they forced them to be the torturers for their fellow comrades, with the threat that if any of the tortured admitted that they were the guard who showed them a shred of mercy or leniency, they would be sent back to the beginning of the program to experience it all again, which most did several times. If these prisoners were given even the slightest chance, they instantly tried to commit suicide. Some even chewed through their wrists to get to their veins, which the communists solved by knocking out all of their teeth. One of the biggest mistakes the Western world made was not making the crimes of the Soviet Union more known. Everyone should know this happened, that yes, there was an organization of people much worse than even the Nazis. 11th fact. Some spiders can lay eggs under human skin, leading to unsettling parasitic infestations. 12th fact. My father's school did a guided tour through the woods searching and learning about local herbs. A few years later, my father was still a child. The police showed up and asked him if he recognized the man in a picture that they showed him. My father explained that he was the herbalist tour guide. Apparently the guy had murdered several boys and had my father's name and address in his car. The police had caught the guy by this point. I think he killed himself or died in suspicious circumstances. 13th fact. Dead bodies moan and grunt when you move them. I was a paramedic and firefighter for 21 years. I was around a lot of dead people. 14th fact. The inside of a sea turtle's mouth or throat looks like something straight out of a horror movie monster. Absolutely covered in spines. They swallow a large amount of seawater when eating food, which they then vomit back out. The spines keep the food in but let the water out. 15th fact. Well, all of these make my flatworm tidbit seem meek. When flatworms mate, two males use their bifurcated penises to fence one another. The winner, or the flatworm who stabs the other with its penis dagger, remains a male while the loser becomes female and we impregnate it. 16th fact. Some people are born with a malformed mass of veins in their brain called an arteriovenous malformation, and they have no idea unless it is seen on a computed tomography or magnetic resonance imaging. Then one day it can burst without warning, and that happy, healthy person can die, suffer brain damage, paralysis, and other complications. No warning. 17th fact. Learning that some plants can actually communicate with each other. Suddenly, my herb garden feels a lot more like a gossip column. 18th fact. You have probably heard a fact about how 70% of the human body is water. We basically know this because of a Japanese general who roasted people in an oven. 19th fact. I had to have a cesarean section when our daughter was born and heard one doctor say to the other doctor, "Pass me the uterus. I am going to clean it. I still do not know whether my uterus was actually lifted out. I still do not want to know." Update. I am thankfully not as squeamish as my post may have made me look. When I heard that sentence, I immediately thought, wow, if I were more squeamish, I would probably be horrified right now or crying. I know that people working in the medical field consider this normal, and that is okay. Stuff like this becomes normal when you have to deal with it every day. Just felt they could have said that less loudly or signaled to their colleague, as not everyone wants to know that. 20th fact. If you have abdominal surgery and the surgeon needs your intestines out of the way, they do not try to get them back in exactly as they were. They can put them in pretty much any old way, and they sort themselves out. Then I freaked out even more when someone else commented that you can quite often feel them wriggling themselves back into position. 21st fact. There are over 200 dead bodies located on top of Mount Everest that serve as waypoints for climbers because it is too risky to retrieve them. 22nd fact. Your brain chooses to ignore your nose. If it did not, you would notice it in your point of view constantly. You only see it in your point of view when you want to see it. In addition to this, the veins in your eyeballs cast shadows into your vision, but because this is never new information since they are always on the same spot, your brain omits it from view. but you can trick yourself into seeing them by making a pinhole with your fingers and looking at a bright spot like the sky or a white monitor and wiggling your hand around. This moves the shadows around, making it new information. 23rd fact. Your immune system does not know your eyes exist. If it learned, it would identify them as foreign and try to destroy them. 24th fact. Naegleria fowleri, also known as the brain-eating amoeba, is a species of the genus Naegleria. It belongs to the phylum Percolozoa and is technically classified as an amoboflagellate excavate, rather than a true amoeba. This free-living microorganism primarily feeds on bacteria but can become pathogenic in humans, causing an extremely rare, sudden, severe, and usually fatal brain infection known as naegleriosis or primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, which is abbreviated as primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. It is typically found in warm freshwater bodies such as lakes, rivers, hot springs, warm water discharge from industrial or power plants, geothermal well water, and poorly maintained or minimally chlorinated swimming pools with residual chlorine levels under 0.5 milligrams per cubic meter, water heaters, soil and pipes connected to tap water. It can exist in either an amoeboid or temporary flagellate stage. 25th fact. Fatal familial insomnia. Creepy disease that just does not let you sleep. You start seeing hallucinations until you die. This disease is hereditary and you cannot find symptoms. This disease is destroying sleep cells, so you cannot just take sleeping pills. There is a book about this disease, The Family That Could Not Sleep. This family was very large and they watched how their children died. Very creepy. 26th fact. Wasp dies inside the fig. Yuck lol. 27th fact. Some members of the Mormon Church practice baptism by proxy for the unbaptized deceased, which they believe the deceased person may choose after death to accept and thereby gain entry to heaven. Targets of this practice have included popes, the United States founding fathers, the Buddha, Genghis Khan, and both victims of the Holocaust and Adolf Hitler. 28th fact. Vacuum decay. Theoretically, if some quantum tunneling event occurs in deep space, it can sort of unmake the physical laws of the universe and it will just stop. This effect will spread out at speeds faster than the speed of light. This can occur in the same way a shadow can move faster than light, or the expansion of the universe itself can move faster than light. These dead areas are also invisible as they, by their very nature, emit no radiation, absorb any that ventures in, and move so fast the only way you know one was coming was that all the stars near you would all blink out in a matter of weeks. 29th fact. In real life, Nemo's dad would have become female after the death of the mother, so Nemo could have sexual relations with him and make babies. 30th fact. There's a thing called eyelash lice fuck. 31st fact. A non-zero number of farmers go missing yearly from pigs. They will eat just about anything. 32nd fact. That there is literally nowhere in your house that you can store your toothbrush without it getting fecal matter on it, thanks Mythbusters. 33rd fact. Sometimes when you have a sharp pain in your chest, like in the lung area when breathing in, it could be that there is not enough fluid around the lung, and it got stuck to a rib, or your diaphragm is not in the correct place. 34th fact. The president of Argentina and his wife kept Eva Perón's dead body just chilling at the breakfast table. 35th fact. Dolphins are known to be quite intelligent, but they can also be cruel. In some cases, they have been documented killing baby dolphins of other pods, seemingly for fun. 36th fact. Everyone thinks guinea worms, the ones you have to slowly twist out of your skin around a stick, are a purely tropical phenomenon. Not true. My state, Minnesota, has 7 species of guinea worms. My dad has been infected with them before. 37th fact. Bed bugs mate through a process called traumatic insemination. The male bed bug stabs the female in her abdomen with his penis, which is very sharp, then proceeds to engage in sexual intercourse with her open stomach wound. 38th fact. The Yuba County Five were a group of 5 young men consisting of Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Ted Weyer, Jack Madruga, and Gary Mathias, who all went missing after attending a basketball game at California State University in 1978. A few days after their disappearance, Jack's car was found in Plumas National Forest on a mountain far away from Yuba County, in working order, and as the snow melted, 4 of their bodies were found, with Gary Mathias still missing to this day. This one is so heartbreaking to me. Some of the guys were found just a few miles from where the families had been looking, months after the official searches had been called off. If they had just widened their search a little bit, some of them could have been found alive. The opinion among family members is that police did not perform due diligence because the men were developmentally disabled. 39th fact. The way you extract semen from a bull is by shoving a giant dildo up its ass and cranking that device to 11. I was told this by my dad, a veterinarian, unprompted while having a beer on the back porch with him one Thanksgiving. Thanks, Dad. 40th fact. If a person is killed by fire ants, the cause of death usually is not from the stings. The person usually dies of asphyxiation due to the ants invading their lungs. 41st fact. The bacterial spores of Bacillus cereus are in all rice varieties and are not destroyed when cooked, as the spores and toxin which make you sick are heat resistant. But they are not active until your rice stays around room temperature for them to germinate. So it is best to cool it down a bit, then immediately put it in the fridge. Also, do not reheat it more than once. 42nd fact. 10 years ago, the Federal Bureau of Investigation estimated there were 50 serial killers loose in the United States at any given time. Now they estimate there is at least 500 truckers with torture murder chambers in their truck, driving freely across the country. 43rd fact. Your ears can hear the sounds in your brain. It sounds like water pipes in an apartment. I only know this because I was having an extremely blocked ear due to ear boogers. It had to be sucked out with a vacuum machine by an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and for the first 5 minutes after the procedure, I could hear water pipes around the entire hospital. As it turns out, my brain just had not tuned it out. In no time, I could not hear any more pipe sounds. I also know that was the case because the unblocked ear totally did not hear anything. 44th fact. Some of the victims of Pompeii may have taken up to 15 minutes to suffocate to death by inhaling the scalding hot pyroclastic ash and gases. Other victims died by having their skulls explode from the searing temperatures of the flows. There was also one poor individual they found who had been basically incinerated in an instant while taking cover in bed. 45th fact. One creepy fact I wish I never learned is that there is a rare disorder called Cotard's syndrome, also known as walking corpse syndrome. People with this condition believe they are dead, do not exist, or have lost their internal organs. It is incredibly disturbing to think about the profound psychological and emotional impact this disorder must have on those who suffer from it. 46th fact. Giving birth to a child is often talked about. Giving birth to the placenta is one thing nobody talks about. It felt like the nurse pulled a giant squid out of my vagina, super gross. After that, she pushed my abdomen and blood squirted out of me and sprayed her hole. It was absolutely disgusting. 47th fact. Carl Tanzler fell in love with Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos, a young tuberculosis patient at the Key West Hospital where he was a radiology technician, but his fondness grew into an obsession after she died in the year 1931. Tanzler lived with the corpse of the woman he loved for 7 years. When she started to decompose, he embalmed her body and stuffed her with cotton wool. When she was eventually discovered, he was asked at his trial if he ever consummated their relationship. He said no, but stuff was found in the cotton wool of her ahem, bathing suit area. 48th fact. This is more life-ruining than creepy. But the window calculator between the 8 and 9 keys, the 9 key was mistakenly made 1 pixel off, and they are not in a grid. It is not all in line up and down. Once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. 49th fact. It does not creep me out that much, but is kind of depressing that stock laughs often put on top of situational comedies and stuff were all recorded back in 1950. So these are the laughs of the dead echoing over unfunny jokes. 50th fact. I found out they remove your nipples and put them back on during a breast reduction. Thank you for watching this video to the end. In the comments below the video, write what creepy facts you know. And also be sure to subscribe to our channel to not miss new super interesting videos, and I advise you to watch our other videos.